Well, here we are in Morehead City, North Carolina, and it is with great pleasure and privilege that I'm here with my friend and fellow Vietnam vet that I served with in Vietnam, Ray Bourgeois. Ray, I can't thank you enough for allowing us to come and spend time with you and your lovely wife, and we're here today to talk about our service in Vietnam and talk a little bit about our lives and so forth. And I'm just going to start. You know most of my life story, and I know most of yours, but people that are going to be watching this, generations to come, are not going to have any background on either one of us. So I'm just going to start by asking you, where were you born and raised?
I was born in Kinston, North Carolina, but I was raised in California, Southern California.
Barstow?
No, I started off in San Diego. My father was a Marine, then we got transferred to Pendleton. Camp Pendleton was just a little bit north of that. And then he got stationed in a base in Barstow, and he bought a house there, and that's where I stayed until I got drafted.
Okay. And you just mentioned that you were from San Diego, and of course, that's my hometown.
No.
And I'm not so sure that when we walked into that platoon together in August of 1968, that's one of the first things you asked a guy, where are you from? And when I said San Diego, I think you probably thought, well, there's somebody I can
hook up with.
I can like right off the bat. And the reason I say that is if I would have said I was from LA, that would have been an entirely different
response.
Yeah, a lot of thugs and hoods and stuff that came in from LA. And tell us a little bit about your family. Tell us about your mom and dad.
Well, my mom worked in a hospital. She was an avid athlete. She played basketball in high school. And my old man was an athlete from way back. I mean, he played every sport. Professional boxer, not semi-professional, umpire professionally. And of course, he was a Marine for 25 years. And we had a good life. There's 6 kids. I was the second oldest.
Can you name all your siblings?
Sure. Older brother was a junior, actually the third. Well, he was named after my father. And then me, and then my sister Sharon, then my brother Ron, and then my sister. I take that back. Susie was born after Sharon, and then Ron, who at that time was the baby, and then there was a good period of time where they didn't have any kids, and then they had a little girl named Jackie, who was the little sister, and she became the baby of the family.
Okay.
So,
and so life was pretty good growing up.
Yeah, it was. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable.
And I have to mention this about your dad. He was a Marine.
Absolutely.
And one of the most outstanding stories about your dad, of course, was, I'm going to let you tell the story about Iwo Jima. Go ahead and tell us about that.
Which one?
The fact when they went to Iwo Jima and up the...
Oh, yeah, my father was... it's amazing. We spent a year in Vietnam under the worst conditions you could possibly have. And you don't think that in World War II, these guys weren't there for a year. They were there for the whole stitch of time until the war was over. So my father was in Guadalcanal, Okinawa, and he walked up the hill of Iwo Jima. He watched the flag being put up at Iwo Jima. He never told us anything about it, but I knew he had Purple Hearts, more than one, but I don't know what for or how many. He never showed any of his decorations or even talked about it. So exactly what he got medal-wise, I'm still not positive about. But yeah, he was all Marine, no question about it. And of course, with his discipline, we got that a little bit at home. I mean, you don't break his rules. But he was fair, always fair to us, and there's no doubt in my mind he loved all of us.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
So, but yeah, he was a good man. Got all the praise in the world for him. He was number one.
Yep. And he was a platoon sergeant, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I remember that is I wrote him many letters and he wrote me many letters, and his writing was a certain style until we reached NCO. The minute we got our sergeant stripes, his letters started to change dramatically. Do you remember that? Now all of a sudden the letters were about leadership, responsibilities. Remember?
Exactly. Oh, yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
I'll tell you, he was.
He was trying to keep us straight,
Yep.
making sure we were doing what we were supposed to be doing.
Yep. And of course, one of the highlights of my life is when I was able to go to the Iwo Jima Memorial, and you were there when the bus tour, the guy in the bus took us, and I got the idea that I saw the flag flying, and I did a little investigating, and I found out that I could, with your father's information and so forth, that I could actually get a flag that flew at the memorial in his name, and that went on the record at the memorial and so forth. And when I presented that to you at the reunion, that for me was the final way that I could say to your dad, you know, how much I loved him and respected him.
That tore me up. That
Yeah.
really
Well, it
tore
did me
up.
too.
I couldn't have had a better, anybody give me anything better than that. Because it represented everything my father stood for.
Yep.
And I've still got it sitting in my house, and along with the plaque that came with it. And yeah, that was probably the most emotional I've been on at a reunion. That was, I almost tear up when I'm thinking about
Oh,
it.
I know. It was, you know, and because I'd gotten to know your dad through the letters, you know, and when I came home from Vietnam, I haven't mentioned this to anybody, but you know, the first place I went was your house, and the first person I wanted to meet was your dad. And when I knocked on the door and he answered the door, it was just like an instant,
Rapport.
just instant, and that was really neat. You know, that was a good time. What did I stay a couple of days, I think, and but unique man. I mean, not like anybody, you know.
No,
I've
he was
ever
one
known.
of a kind. He really
Yeah.
was.
So growing up was good. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Barstow High School in Barstow. And graduated from there.
And what did you do after high school?
I went to junior college in the same town, and went there for almost 2 years, not quite. I got drafted out of college. You know the normal routine. You party a little bit too much, and your grades don't get quite as good as they're supposed to be. So they notified the draft board, and all of a sudden you get a little letter in the mail.
And as well as us having up to that point, not knowing each other, our lives were actually walking in a parallel way, because I did the same identical thing. And in my case, I was a little bit more naughty than you were. My goals were is to make money and chase girls, and I'm not sure what order
I understand.
that would have been on. But
I'm not sure mine went that far off. But
and you know, my dad just wanted me to go to college, you know, because he never did, and he
Exactly.
wanted that for me. And when I dropped out that second year, I didn't tell him, and he's the one that actually saw the letter, and it was sitting there when I got home one evening, and I could tell the look on his face. He was disappointed, and you know that didn't happen very often, but I knew. Before I ever opened it, I knew, because it said selective service.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
he knew what it was. So yeah, it's really odd our parallel journeys up to that point in life, and so we both got drafted, of course. Tell me what your reaction was when you actually got home and you saw the letter and you opened it, and now this is real.
Okay, I opened the letter, and as soon as I saw selective service, I knew what was coming. And my older brother, had gotten drafted a month and a half before that. So when he got drafted, I figured I was coming. Not as quick as it came, because I thought I still had another semester of school. I figured I'd be safe for that. But the first thing I did is open the letter and I read it, that says, "Your friends and neighbors have." this agreement saying they're saying you've been selected for service by your friends and neighbors. So I went out the front door. I went next door, I knocked on the door, and I said, I got this letter saying you want me to go into service. Is that true? And they said, no, we don't want you going into service. I said, the son of a gun's are lying.
Right off the bat.
Right off the bat, I said, this is not going to be a good thing for me. So, yeah, I got the reference, of course, my old man knew it was coming.
I was just going to ask that. What did your dad say about this?
He said, whatever you do not go in the Marine Corps. He said, you can't take orders. You've never been able to take orders. And I said, you're going to be one of the things, either going to be kicked out of the service or you're left working. One of the two if you go in the Marine Corps, because you won't do it. So when I went down to the draft board and got my physical and all that, they stood us in a line to tell us where we were going. There was this one guy with a little white hat on, with blue stripe, blue pants with a red stripe, and a khaki shirt, walking down the line saying, you. And he came to me and he said, looked at me and he went, you. They all went and got back in the Marine Corps. And I went in the Army, I said.
Do you know that at that point, nobody knew the Marines were drafting?
Exactly.
I mean, it was only a join. You had to join the Marines until we went into the service. They started actually drafting people into the Marines.
That's right, because they didn't have any personnel.
They couldn't get enough guys to go in. That's right.
Yeah.
So, where did you go to basic training?
Fort Ord, California.
Okay, and of course that's where I went. And I know we were there at the same identical time, just probably in different companies. And what do you remember about? Did you get bussed?
Exactly.
Okay, tell me, because I remember this. What was it like when you drove in and they stopped and the doors open and everybody had to get out? Describe what that was like.
We pulled up to the staging area, and this DI comes in, a little funky hat, and steps up to the front of the bus and said, everybody's blank, 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 off the bus now. Of course, we grab all our stuff and get out of the bus as quick as we can and stand in line. And of course, 3/4 of the guys don't even know what standing in line means. And of course, being from a military background with my man, I knew what was coming.
Sure.
And then they set us in line and they went through the routine. Your blank, blank backsides are mine now. And then they took us out to go ahead and be processed in. And
Did they have a trash can up in front there, and did they tell anybody that was standing there if they had any weapons or
weapons, drugs, you name
knives?
it. Anything that's yeah. And it was already almost full when I got to the line, in the line.
And what did they say would happen to you if they caught you with anything after they gave you a chance of getting it away?
You're going to jail in a heartbeat.
It would be the end
That's
of
it.
you.
You're in.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. That's so. See, we were there almost the same day. The same thing happened, and so forth. And Fort Ord, by the way, wasn't a bad place.
It really wasn't.
The only thing I didn't like is that it was under quarantine for spinal meningitis.
Exactly.
Which meant we could not leave the company area. We could only leave the company area for training. No weekends off.
Nothing.
You couldn't leave and you could only go as a group to get a haircut.
Or the PX once a week to get.
As
whatever.
a group, you couldn't.
No.
They wouldn't let you out of the company area.
But
But that meningitis was a bad deal. There were guys dropping off.
Oh yeah, I know it was.
On that.
It's a serious disease.
So, do you remember who your DI's name was?
Oh, don't I ever. And if he could walk in this door right now, I'd go over there and beat the living daylights out of him. His name was Rivera, Sergeant Rivera. I'll never forget it. We were standing in line, he's a little short sucker. And he walked up to me and he looked at this thing and he looked at me and looked at me and looked at me and he couldn't pronounce my last name. And he said, Frenchie.
Ah.
And I looked at him and I knew I was dead meat from then on. Because any detail, I mean, I've carried my foot locker on my shoulders, and Doc walked around the barracks. I don't know how many times was standing over there laughing at me and yelling at me. So if I could find him today, as a matter of fact, when I came back from Vietnam, my older brother was stationed at Fort Ord. That's where he spent his whole tour.
Oh yeah.
He was in assigning people where they going. I forgot the name of what they call it. But,
And he couldn't get in there and get your name and get you to.
if I'd have been 2 weeks late, if I'd have just screwed up in basic and been put back 2 weeks, I can't be going anywhere I wanted to go in the world.
Oh my gosh.
But the time situation, he wasn't in a position to do anything. He was still in training.
Well, and think of this, Ray. Under ordinary circumstances, your brother went in the service first. Had he have gone to Vietnam, you would not have.
Exactly.
Because the little rule was his two sons don't have to be there at
Same time.
the same time.
But,
So it sounds to me like things are kind of going bad right from
Whew,
the
my goodness, my goodness.
get-go. So did you have any idea, remember when we did the testing and they said this is going to determine what your MOS is going to be, and did you have any thought of, well, gosh, maybe I'll go into radio school or I'll go do something else, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, when we got off that bus, with the war going on the way it was, we all figured Vietnam was our final destination anyway. So trying to figure out a way to get out of it. Of course, we went in and did the test to see if you're stupid or not, and I qualified for LCS. But the time you had to sign up for to do it, I couldn't live with.
My story exactly, identical.
There's no way in the world I'm going to be spending any more time in this.
And
this than I have
for
to.
some reason or other in my mind at that moment, I made the determination that I would, I got drafted, I was in for 2 years, I'll do my duty, but not one day more. And this would come up later, actually. This whole thought process would come up later in Vietnam after you and I had been there for, I don't know, about 7 or 8 months.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah. So Fort Ord wasn't bad, Monterey.
Yeah.
Now, AIT, you went to,
Fort Lewis, Washington.
and I stayed at Fort Ord. So I stayed for AIT and you left and went to Fort Ord, or Fort Hood.
Fort Hood in Texas.
Hood, right?
Yeah, Hood.
And so tell me about Fort Hood.
Wet. Cold.
Washington.
Yep. Seattle, Washington area. It was far better than basic because we had more freedom. We had weekend passes
And by the way, same thing with us. It was just basic that they locked you down. At AIT,
Exactly.
it was another world.
Oh yeah. Well, you were one of the
A
boys.
human being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, a lot of running. They're going to keep trying to get you in physical shape. A lot of going to the range and going to the different areas to learn as much as you can about what you're going to be getting involved with.
Weapons.
Weapons, M50. I got to fire M79. A law I fired. Never did fire M79 until I got to Vietnam, but took me the 30 cal machine gun. The
Did you get to shoot a Laws rocket?
I did get to shoot a
Yeah.
Laws.
Yeah.
And I didn't hit what I was aiming at, but I did shoot it.
Sure.
So I mean, you knew where you were going, and the instructors you had, you did it when you got back from overseas. Most of the instructors we had were Vietnam vets, and they were really, really trying to give us knowledge that would keep us alive over there. And you tried to pay attention so that you would learn something, and you got helpful hints, but until you're actually on the ground and you really don't know what you're getting into. What they told us helped us to begin with, but the old guys that were there before us are the ones that helped us get through it and learn to get through the first 2 weeks anyway without getting hurt.
And same thing at Fort Ord, the teachers, the instructors were all Vietnam vets. And they were all infantry vets.
Exactly.
And most of them were wounded, had been wounded, and that's how they wound up doing this. My drill instructor at AIT was a door gunner, and his chopper was shot down and overrun by NVA. Both pilot, co-pilot was killed instantly. He got thrown out. He was unconscious. They stripped him, took all the stuff, took all the radio stuff out of the helicopter before any help could even get
Yeah,
there.
right.
And so this is my drill instructor, and he's still on a cane. He's walking around on a cane, which was good because we didn't have to do much PT. We
Exactly.
never ran with him. We walked everywhere we went. But interestingly enough, in the evening times, he would come out in his shorts and a t-shirt and his Smokey Bear hat. And he'd pull somebody's foot locker into the center and he'd sit down and he'd say, I want to tell you guys something. And usually it was after he'd had 4, 5, 6 drinks. So he was already,
Lubricated.
yeah. And he would start telling, and he'd start crying. And that was when I saw him cry that first time, I knew something very bad had happened. And I, like you, I said, I have got to learn everything I can. I mean, if this guy, who survived this and that, and he's there begging me not to go to sleep in the bleachers and so
Exactly.
forth, that was pretty, that
Impressive.
really took a,
Yeah, and now you had some that were just doing it, just biding their time.
yep.
They got 6 months left in doing the service and just
Yep.
there to get it over with and leave. But most of them were very, very
And
sincere.
really
about
wanted
helping
to
you.
help us, yeah.
Exactly. So that was a good thing. Next.
Next, you graduate from AIT.
Right.
I think they gave us a few weeks off. What did you do? Go home? What'd you do during your leave?
We want to talk about that.
Did you
Had a good time though.
did you continue to work at the jewelry store?
No, I went by and saw him, but no, when I got drafted, I was working at the jewelry store in high school and while I was going to college, and yeah, that was a great job. It really was. But I went back and saw everybody, and I mean, it was really short and fast. And then I went back to Fort Ord to see my brother before I went overseas, older brother. And then from there I went back to Sacramento to go
Oakland?
Oakland.
Yep. So were you married or did
No.
you engaged or
Nope.
any commitments when you went to Vietnam?
No, I knew better than that.
Okay.
I didn't want to take any chances. Even then, I knew the odds were against me coming back. So I didn't want to have somebody in a black dress waiting for my remains to come back from overseas. So no, I didn't get involved with anybody. I'm not saying I didn't date, but I wasn't mostly involved with anybody.
I would have thought that your biggest fear would have been getting a Jody letter.
That didn't cross my mind, but I probably would have. You know me as well as anybody in the world, so you're probably right. I probably would have got one.
That. How many guys did we have to sit with?
Oh boy!
And I mean,
Put down them on the shoulder and say it'll be all right.
honest to Pete, those were rough. And the one thing that always held true when you knew that guy had gotten the Dear John letter from his wife, a lot of them were married
Oh, I know it.
or fiancés, you could 9 out of 10 times know that it was his best friend.
As a rule.
As a rule, his best friend. And of
You're
course,
right.
what was our favorite name for him?
I can't remember.
Jody.
You got it. Yep.
Jody. So, and then of course, and I don't know why it fell on my shoulders, but guys figured out that I either could write good letters or whatever. So these guys would get these Jody letters and come to me and say, can you help me write back and beg and plead and can you save this? And of course I would sit down and write these letters, and the next thing you know, she's writing me letters.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
But and I tell this in all sincerity. I think I was writing to 6 or 7 different,
Oh, I'm sure. Oh yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
but the motivation there is we wanted to get letters. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
mail was like really,
Gold.
that was gold.
Gold.
So you go to Oakland. I think we were there for a couple of days,
Yep.
and of course, by now we know we're infantry, obviously. We
yeah,
went to AIT.
Yeah, no question.
And there were just like thousands of guys there.
Oh, yeah, I mean.
And did you get your free steak?
Yep,
And I didn't, but I still have the coupon. I still have that coupon that allowed me to go and get a free steak. So then we got on a plane and went to Vietnam.
that's right.
And what did you think about on the plane ride over? It was about 23 hours.
23 hours. I said, well, to be honest with you, I was wondering if I was going to be on the same plane coming back. We'll get into that story later.
Mm-hmm.
We have a bad situation there, but yeah, I was afraid, just like anybody would be, apprehensive. Really didn't know what I was getting into. And if I'd known then what I know now, I probably would have jumped out of the airplane to save myself a lot of aggravation for what we went through for a year.
In all seriousness, did it ever cross your mind to burn your draft card or go to Canada?
No, never did. Never even crossed. Coming from a military family with my
Yeah.
dad being a Marine.
Yeah, yeah.
If I'd have even thought about it or even mentioned it, he'd have probably disowned me.
Oh, of course.
But of course, the subject never came up because there's no way in the world.
Yeah.
You don't have it now. What we'd had back then when we were young is the pride in your country, and you didn't want to go, but you felt your obligation to go because your country called and they needed you, and you do whatever you can to support your country. So there was no hesitation about that. I didn't want to get drafted, but once I did,
We were going to do our duty.
I was committed to do what I needed to do.
That's pretty much the way I felt too. So they land at Benoit, they come to a stop, they open the door of the airplane. You get to the door and take your first step out, and it was a ramp,
going
stairs. What was your first impression of Vietnam?
Two things. The enormous humidity. Now, I live here in North Carolina now, and we've got humidity very similar to what's in Vietnam during the summer, as much rain as we get here. But the humidity there and the stench, I said, how am I going to live in this place for a year? I said, I won't be able to breathe. But it's amazing how quickly you adjust.
Mm-hmm.
But that's probably the biggest impression. I didn't even see the surroundings to mount anything. That initial blast of hot air and the odors was unbelievable. And I was ready to get down and get into someplace else.
Mm-hmm. And then they put us on a bus and they took us to Long Binh.
You're processing
And
exactly.
tell me about that little experience.
I don't remember much about the bus ride, but I remember getting there to the processing area, and they got their little bleachers and everything, and you're supposed to go in, you check in, and at that point we don't know where we're going.
Exactly.
So you've got to report to this reception area once a day, and to find out where you're going. If your name didn't get called out that day, well, you were free for the afternoon to do what you want, unless you got real lucky and got stuck on KP or guard duty or whatever. Some days you're lucky, some days you're not. So you're free until the next morning. They could come up, get in the bleachers, and you do the same routine.
Now, the only reason I can ask these next questions is because I was there the same identical days that we didn't know it at the time.
That's right.
But we were actually probably in the same hooch. Do you remember the first night when all of a sudden rockets and mortars in the distance started to go off?
Oh yeah.
And our planes were dropping bombs. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I do. I didn't know what the hell to do.
I'm telling you, what a rude awakening.
I mean to tell you, the more so the rockets than the bombing,
Yeah.
because I knew that the South Vietnam armies didn't have Air Force to mount anything. I mean, they had Chinese jets that they used, but we weren't being bombed by anybody in an airplane. We were being rocketed, mortared, and artillery shells coming in. But mostly the explosives that landed on the ground around us was
Yep.
ground-based, not air. So, but the rockets scared me. They really did. And when they come in, you can hear them coming in, and you really don't know where they're going to land until they actually hit.
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't know where to go. Really don't. I can't remember if I went into a bunker that night or not. I think I tried to. I may have. I don't remember, to be honest with you. But they had them sitting out each hooch that you can get into if you want,
Yeah.
in case of that happening. But I don't remember going. I don't remember. I just remember being scared out of my mind.
Well, I remember feeling so helpless because we didn't have a weapon.
Oh, you know it. I mean,
I just thought, what if they actually come in here?
Yeah. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I'm sure you didn't either.
No.
But hell, we didn't have a weapon until we got to Kuching. And we didn't have a weapon then for a couple of days while we were processing.
That's
so,
correct.
You felt naked. Especially on that damn bus ride from to Kuching with those damn grates on the windows. And you felt, my first thought was that. But that was they don't want us getting out of here and going back. So took a damn prisoner's bus with the damn windows blocked so you can't get out. And then I realized later that they were preventing hand grenades and
Coming in.
stuff coming in.
Yeah.
But here again, we didn't have a weapon.
And I remember the distinct feeling. I think somebody even said something. What happens if they start shooting at us? I remember there was one driver and one I called it a co-pilot, and he had an M16. And they said, well, this is what we do. If we get ambushed, you guys all get on the floor. You get down, and we're just going to go as fast as we can through it. We're not going to stop. Now, if they blow the wheels out from underneath us, grab your asses and kiss them goodbye.
Exactly.
And that was all the guy said.
Pretty much.
And so that was a nerve-wracking.
It was a nerve-wracking ride.
I remember the dust and going through these little villages, and the kids are all out there.
Yeah, with their little cokes and
begging and God, it was.
At that point, we didn't have sea rations or anything else we could throw at them.
Nothing.
It was a trip. It really was a trip.
And then you got to Kuchi, and they unloaded us. Oh, by the way, we still didn't know, because when they told us we were going to the Wolfhounds, we had no idea what the Wolfhounds
Oh
were.
Lord, no, I had no clue.
I mean, that could have been they could have said the giraffes.
That's right. We wouldn't have
And
a clue
we
what it
wouldn't have
was.
had a clue.
No idea.
So get to Kuchi, and then company clerk has to come out and get our papers.
That's correct.
And I believe, wasn't that when they gave us the lighter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then tell me what your impression was from that point. I think they assigned us to a
They signed us to a hooch, and we had to go through that. We had to, before we could actually get out to the field, we had to go through the school they had there. I can't remember the name of it. Prep school, but
Yep.
something along those lines. The bottom line is they tried to teach us something about jungle warfare and all that, which is really a joke. But
I thought it was a joke.
yeah, it was. Their thought process is probably sincere, but I mean, you can't learn anything like that in a week.
Yeah. And there was one guy there that was a real sadist. And remember when they were telling us we were supposed to be crawling down this trail, and we would find tripwires, and then to identify the tripwire and then get over it and so forth. Well, unbeknownst to us, this one guy had a concussion grenade. Remember that? Right off the ground, and about the time we were getting up to this thing, that concussion grenade went off and just scared the holy bejesus out of everybody. And then all of a sudden you heard this guy laughing. Yeah, that was awful.
He was a sick individual.
Yeah, yeah. So finally, I guess they sent us to the supply room to get our gear, and then put us on a truck and
took us out.
and said, you're going out to a place called Crockett.
I remember Crockett. Yep, sure was.
And again, we didn't know each other.
Oh no.
Russ Bruns was with us.
That's right.
we didn't know, he was quiet. He didn't have
He didn't say
he didn't
what-
have two things to say.
I don't think he said 10 words the whole time he was in Vietnam.
And all that the guy said is when you get there, go find Sergeant Glover. He'll tell you what to do.
That's right. Exactly.
And what was our first day like there?
Well, first we met Glover, and then we met Big Joe and Rambo. I remember meeting it that same day, and you were a real fool because Joe talked you into getting his M79, and I stood there laughing like hell.
And he got my brand new M16.
He got the brand new M16. I kept my rifle. There wasn't no way else to give it up.
And I regretted it every day.
Oh, you know you had to. That damn sack. Hell, if I'd have wore that sack, I'd have been on my butt. I wouldn't have been able to stand up.
And you know what? I couldn't. I remember when I'd have to put that on the berm and just lean up against it, because if I'd have sat down, I wouldn't have got up.
I know it. God knows. That something was heavy. Because I carried the M79 for a little while, but I didn't have the rucksack. I had one of those side pouches. And it didn't have as many rounds in it, but I only carried it for a week. I said, this ain't for me.
Yeah. And as I recall, it rained. It monsooned on us the very first night.
Oh, yeah. It was definitely wet. I can't remember that many dry days, to be honest with you. If it didn't rain sometime during the day or night.
Yep. And so now they actually let us have ammo.
Yep.
And because they sent us to Crockett with 3 empty magazines.
Yeah, we had a weapon, but we couldn't use it.
And so then we got more magazines and ammo and so forth.
Exactly.
And I don't know about you, but I was really confused. I mean, I just didn't have a clue.
No, you're right. I mean, you're
And
not any idea at all.
and as you'll recall, when we got into the platoon, they had just come off of a horrible beating. And the guys that were left in the platoon, I think there was only eight of those guys left, and they were beat.
Oh, yeah, they were. You can look at them.
And the only reason we didn't go out very much in the first place is because there wasn't enough of them to field a
full platoon to go out on.
and so what we were the beginning of the replacements. And then in the days that followed, several more guys showed up and so forth. Tell me your best recollection of the first ambush patrol we went on.
It was out of Crockett. And I don't think we actually popped the first one. We went out and set up. Because I don't know about you, but I didn't know what I was doing. I was just following the guy in front of me and hoping they knew what the hell they were doing.
Exactly. And hoping that they would tell you what to do.
Exactly. But I don't think we actually popped that one.
If I said the laterite pits, would that bring
Oh
back?
my goodness gracious, I didn't like that place. Yeah, we popped some ambushes there.
We sure did.
And I don't think I was carrying a machine gun then.
Nope, you were still carrying
I was
M16.
still carrying M16. But no, I didn't carry the machine gun until a little bit later. And but yeah, I really can't remember where we got the first ambush. The first ambush I can remember popping, that I know we got somebody, was when I was carrying a machine gun. And the damn thing wouldn't stop firing. I was firing a machine gun, and the damn thing wouldn't stop firing.
Do you know who your assistant gunner was that night?
Oh yeah, he was sitting right beside me.
And I looked at the barrel and it was red. And I kept saying, "Stop." And you said, and you went,
I haven't got my hands on the gun now. And being an idiot, both of us at that time, all you had to do was break the link.
of course. And the barrel went from red to white, and then
see him cooking
the
off.
rounds started to go and then finally it ran out of ammo.
Oh boy, I'll tell
And
you.
then you were out of business.
Yeah, damn gun belt to run the house with. I mean,
One of the things that did lesson learned though is we always carried a ramrod
oh yeah.
and a spare barrel. After that, we always, somebody had a spare barrel.
You carry your rounds, and if you see it in all the pictures we've made and all that, you got a bandolier. Now, why the hell we ran them as a bandolier, I don't know, but we did. It was stupid here because if you got a round and hit one of those other rounds, what are you going to do?
Big time.
But we carried them across each other, and you're exposed to the weather.
Yep.
So you never know when you put one in the when you hook up a Lincoln whether it's going to go through the gun or not. But we really didn't have as big a problem with that as I thought we would have. It always seemed to work except for that one instance because I didn't have that problem before or since.
Yeah, that's one memory I'll never forget. That I remember looking down and the barrel was red. I mean, and I kept saying stop, and you went.
I'm having that. Hell,
You had taken your finger off the trigger a long time before that.
You can almost read by the barrel.
Yeah, they were cooking off.
Oh yeah.
They were just cooking off in the chamber.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: that night, we killed several gooks. So that was, I think, the first night we actually got to see face to face.
Dead bodies.
Yeah, contact them.
Yeah.
Now, before that, when we would be in contact or whatever, we would, you'd see guys go down or whatever, but then their buddies would drag them off and so forth, so you could never actually. Do you remember what we did? Of course, we know the story about lining them up in the major and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But then they had us load those bodies on a deuce and a half and take them to the center of the village. Do you remember that? And lined them out. And what did the guys stick in their foreheads?
We've got a little wolfhound emblem that you'll see if you. If
A
you're
crest.
wolfhound, you know exactly what it is.
A crest.
The wolfhound crest.
The one that we wear on the epaulets.
Exactly. It's just like what you see on a lot of guys' hats now. But and it's got a little pin in it where you can put it in your lapel. Right in the forehead.
And an ace of spades.
Oh, definitely. That way we will make sure they knew who did it. As a matter of fact, I think at one time we had a bounty on us that was right up there.
$500 a head.
That's how, we were tough boys.
Yeah. And in reality, I mean, if you look back at this now, you'd say, what better way to piss those people off than to denigrate? I mean, when you think about it.
Yeah, I agree, but we weren't thinking. We wanted to put the fear of God in them.
That's what they were doing.
And
So
where did you guys come up with that tradition? Where did that?
it
where did
was
that come from?
long before we got there.
And so, who supplied you with the cards and the pins? I mean,
We had them. We all had extra.
Now, that card thing is a very interesting subject because a few years ago there was a documentary on TV about Vietnam, and they talked about the bicycle card manufacturing company and the owner of that company, who was a World War II vet, and he sent cases and cases of nothing but decks of ace of spades to Vietnam. Because apparently in World War II, that tradition started. And so unbeknownst, we didn't know where they were coming from, but everybody had them. So I can't remember how many thousands of cases of those things that he sent. So, and that was behind the scenes. There was no advertisement about that or whatever. But so that's where we got those. So now what I want you to do is, in your memory, we were pretty wound up.
Oh yeah.
The adrenaline.
Pumping.
Most guys, I don't think, slept at all for a day or so after that. And then Captain Eichner made the announcement that we were going to go right back
to the same place
again. And I remember there was an automatic knee-jerk reaction with everybody. We shouldn't go back to the same place twice. And we didn't even know anything, but instinct tells you not to do that. And what was even worse than that is they trucked us out. Remember, they trucked us all out on the deuce and a half.
Yeah, I mean, almost at a dead spot.
Tell me what you remember about after we unloaded the trucks and so forth. Take it from there.
I really can't remember, John, to be honest with you. You talking about unloading the trucks in the village?
No, I'm talking about
After
when we
we got
went
off.
back to the same place.
If I'm not mistaken, I think we got hit. We were ambushed at the same place that we ambushed the other guys at. If I'm not mistaken, but it's a little
Oh,
foggy. It's a little foggy.
you're not mistaken. What's happened is it was so horrible. You put this in a place,
You made
in
me
your
right.
mind.
I know it was bad. I remember it being bad.
and I don't know how it happened, but you and I were in the back of the file, and I don't think it was even that we wanted to be there. I think it's just the way
We happened to get off the truck.
the way it wound up. And there was two files, one on our right, we were on the left. You were last, I was in front of you, Sergeant Hannah was in front of me. And we were heading out, and it was still daylight. Now, number one, you never go into your ambush site in the daylight.
No, not even.
I
Don't
mean,
even think about it.
No, I mean, but like I said, we were just a couple of dumbasses doing what we were told to do. And then all of a sudden, RPGs started to come at us. And two things are happening here. You see the fireball, but you hear the fireball. And you would think that you could react and get on the ground, but it's almost like you're paralyzed.
Instant shock.
And one of those RPGs came right and hit right in front of Sergeant Hannah. And of course, the explosion from that, you and I were standing behind him. The explosion knocked both of us down, and I remember you got all kinds of stuff hit rocks and clods and everything, and Hannah went face down, and I just assumed he was covering up. And then they opened up on us with
Big
everything.
Big time.
And then it took about a minute, and then we started returning fire. Well,
fire.
you and I didn't, because we were in the back, and if we had a shot,
We'd have hit somebody.
we'd have been shooting our own guys. And I kept thinking, Hannah's going to tell us what to do. Hannah's going to tell us what to do, and he didn't. And of course, I crawled up there, and he was moaning. And I turned him over, and there was this sucking, kind of wheezing sound, and I opened his shirt, and the bubbling. And of course,
yeah.
it didn't take a second. Training,
Oh, yeah.
first aid training, sucking chest wound. And I was worried about you because you thought you'd actually gotten hit.
Yeah, I
mean,
did.
all those, you got really clobbered with a bunch of rocks and clods
Yeah,
and,
I do.
and stuff. And then I yelled for Doc. And then he came over and, what do we got? He said, what do we got? And I told him, and he said, roll him over. And he cut his shirt off, and the hole that went in the front was about the size of my finger, and the hole that came out his back was about like that. And you could actually see the inside of his the cavity
Yeah, I
there.
know it.
And Doc looked at me, and he said he ain't gonna make it.
When you knew it, right as soon as you saw it, you knew
He
he
ain't
wasn't
gonna make it.
it.
And I remember, the last thing I remember is you and me carrying Hannah to the dust off.
That was the first individual that I saw in Vietnam
Me too.
that was on our side that got killed.
Me too.
And boy, you talking about, and especially Hannah.
So short.
Oh boy, and such a great guy.
And you know, both of us thought the same thing. If he's gonna get it,
What chance have we got?
none. No, we'd had none.
Yeah, and
You
we
know.
were still newbies.
Still newbies. And I remember, I know for at least a couple of days, we were just numb.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
remember how it got real quiet? Nobody talked.
Oh,
Nobody.
no,
I mean, it
no.
was just like,
It's just that you got that thousand-eye stare you see in these movies
Oh,
that
yeah.
they talk about all the time.
and that night, Claymore Larson got wounded bad enough to go back home. Clement Todd.
Yeah, I remember Todd.
I think there was one or two other guys, and I just, for the life of me, I can't remember their names. But this is what the reality of that was. You know, Claymore Larson and I, we were pretty close.
Yeah.
We used to hang with him all the time, and
Oh, I
Todd.
know, I
Remember
know.
Todd used to complain about everything?
Everything
He
in
was
the world.
angry. He was mad all the time. But all of a sudden, they're gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like they never existed.
Didn't get to say goodbye, nothing. And then Spurl comes in. And then, so he kind of replaced that, and then old Spurl, he brought a different, old Okie, from
yeah,
Muskogee, he
yeah.
brought a different
Different personality to
dimension into the platoon. So, okay, so that was really, I think, our first really bad
situation.
deal. And of course, I can tell you, we could sit here for hours.
Oh, I know.
I mean, you and I went through so many battles and so many incidences and so many horrible things. And I mean, just like when we were doing bridge duty, and
yeah.
a kid blew his hand and side off with a grenade that went off. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, that became everyday business.
Oh, yeah.
By that time,
Well,
That
you got the $1 million wound if he survives.
yep.
Uh,
And so Vietnam, now we were changing. We weren't
Rapidly.
we weren't the same. And
we weren't the newbies anymore. We were starting to become old guys.
yep.
And that's
And
only,
you know
that's
what?
only about 2 months.
And you know what? You're right, because a lot of the guys. Joe was still with us, but
Rambo had left.
Rambo left.
Hannah was gone. So we really didn't have
Glover
any-
went to the CP,
CL.
and so it was it was kind of a weird.
We didn't have a choice. We were stuck.
We
We,
were-
we
we
had
were
to take
stuck.
on responsibility.
And we're talking about the bad part. Believe it or not, during the day we play cards
Oh, play cards, joke around.
and
Hell, we
play
even know what to call what?
split.
Penknife? With
play
the knife?
split.
Yeah.
And you and I, of course, used to throw knives
Oh, yeah.
and have knife throwing competitions and so forth. And guys took pictures of us. Did you know that?
No.
Oh yeah, I've got pictures of us.
Throwing a knife?
Oh, yeah.
I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
realize that.
So we were pretty famous, I think. And so all these guys are leaving, and now we got all these new guys coming in. And
Yeah. What do you do with them?
and my first reaction was, and I know because you and I talked about it, is they're going to get us killed.
Oh, yeah. There's no question about it. Yeah, I agree with you.
And so we didn't want to have anything to do with them. And then about 2 weeks into it, we thought, well, if we don't
This is
teach
stupid,
them,
Yeah.
they're going to get us killed anyway.
So we better teach them so at least we get a shot.
Yep. So what, of all of the horrible things that happened in Vietnam, do you have anything that sticks out in your mind that just you've never quite been able to?
I can tell you the times that I was the most afraid. I just knew it was that night. Number one was Diamond. I had that ambush patrol. And matter of fact, it's the first time I shot somebody and actually saw his face. Most of the time you're shooting at hedgerows or figures,
Shadows.
shadows. I was sitting in I was set up in the corner of the LZ, and this I'll to use a nice term, the enemy, one of the enemy, was walking away. There's a hedgerow, but it's real thin. It's not real heavy. He started walking through, so I stood up, and he wasn't no further than me to you when I put a bullet in his chest. And to see somebody's expression and his real face was devastating. Before it wasn't personal.
Oh no, yeah, there wasn't a face to the.
No,
yeah.
you were just taking care of the business. And but at that point, I mean, it got personal because you could see the man's face when you killed him. So that was one, and that and the fact coming back in. When you're coming back in from the patrol, it wasn't they were all over us. I mean, we were running right in the middle of them. We were running back. We got a radio call from, I think it was probably Glover, told us to get our butts back as quick as we could. So we started heading back, and they were all over us. I mean, we were running right through the middle of them, and finally we got somewhat close to the base when we saw that the left of us as we were going down. We were in rice paddies. There's a big berm, and on the other side of the berm there was a 51 cal shooting. at the aircraft.
That is a Chinese communist 51 caliber machine gun. Yeah.
Exactly.
Not to be mistaken with our 50s.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. They're much more powerful.
Yep.
And a bigger round, and they were shooting at the aircraft supporting the fire base. So we hit the dirt, and we knew with as many of them that were wrapped around us, there's nowhere we were. That's it. We're there for the duration, one way or the other. We were going to stay there and be put on a chopper and taken and bagged up, or we were going to survive. One of those choices. We weren't going back into base camp that night. Not a chance. And I can't remember which one it was. Whoever was carrying the duper, M79 gun, got real lucky. He shot around at that M50, at that 51, and I don't know if he hit the ammo or what, but it stopped working. And after that, we started receiving fire. And that's when we related to, and I could, our Ho Chi Minh guy,
Pete.
right, yeah, I was saying, I can't believe I forgot his name, but Pete.
No, Kit Carson Scout.
That's right,
Yeah,
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 getting
yeah,
these
yeah.
Kit Carson guy.
Yeah.
They were still all around us. We were all laying flat, and if I'm not mistaken, he talked to them and told them we were all dead. So they just bypassed us. If I'm not mistaken, that's what happened. But you have to get verification from some of the other guys that made it. But and then coming back into the base camp the next morning after everything was over with, of course there's bodies everywhere, and of course we had 16 men on the patrol, and we came back with 6 that were still walking, that we didn't chop her out,
Yep.
wounded or dead. And I knew, God knows, God, thank God we get back to the base camp where it's safe.
Yeah. Oh,
And we
yeah.
have protection. And then to get back and find out that the rest of the platoon is gone from sack charges in the bunkers
Bunkers are gone.
was devastating. I don't think I was quite the same after that. After the rest of the tour I was there, it did something to me. But that was probably the scariest that was, except for one time. And you were the one that caused it. You did. We went on ambush patrol. We got hit, and we were receiving fire, and you fired a law, took out the position, and you were wounded. And we had to get a chopper in it to evacuate you out.
John Boyle was shot between the eyes right beside
Right
me.
beside you, I remember that. And somebody had to go out there in the middle of that field with a strobe light to let the chopper know where to land.
Mm.
And so I went out there, nobody would move. So I grabbed the strobe light, and I said, I needed to get your ass out of there. I didn't know how bad you were wounded because I couldn't see you, but I knew you were hit, so I wanted you out of there.
Where were you wounded?
I had a Laws rocket, took it from the waist down, I was paralyzed. Just
Because you fired the laws rocket?
oh yeah,
Yeah, see, he was,
laying back. I was laying down and
normally you're taught this when you're in the service. You don't fire laws. If you're standing up or kneeling down, you can fire it like that. But if you're laying down, to the blast, because the blast goes both ways. But he was in a position where he didn't have a choice.
Oh,
So and it was either shoot the laws the way he was, or
and it just messed it.
oh,
it just
it's
messed him up. But I'll tell
the
you what.
whatever the nerves or whatever. it's just-
Exactly. But there's no lonelier feeling standing out there in the middle of a rice paddy with a big light going boom.
and
boom,
then the
boom,
helicopter
boom,
with the
boom.
red light.
And the helicopter comes down, then they spotlight the landing area. And I knew I was going to get shot any second. Because we were still in contact.
Yeah.
That was the second time I was as scared as I ever was. But you were worth it.
Yeah, that was a very bad night. And as a matter of fact, that fight we got a write-up in the Tropic Lightning for that particular battle. And of course, John Boyle, you remember him, Boise, Idaho, young man,
Nice kid.
nice young man, and
That's crazy.
and he was one of the ones that I took under my wing,
Oh, yeah, he,
And,
man,
and he was, I had him carrying the M79, and I could be wrong, but I think he'd been there about 6 weeks. And he was
6
starting
or
to,
7.
he was
Just starting to learn.
starting to get the stuff. And when we set up that night, Flat Dick told us, there's the village, and here's the main thoroughfare berm, and if they come, they're coming right, and we set up right on it.
That's right.
And,
remember that.
and Lemire was right, my machine gunner right there on the left, his ammo bearer, another guy, myself, Boyle, and Slovey. And I set out 2 claymores right up on that trail, facing right there, and I figured that's the best we can do. And I remember setting on top of the berm a couple of flares, the parachute
Oh, yeah,
flares.
oh, yeah.
And I had my 2 magnetos, and the Laws rocket extended. I mean, we were
were ready to
paranoid.
go.
Well, no, we
Oh,
were
oh,
paranoid. By that time, we were in a bad place. So we were ready to go. And I told Boyle, the only thing I want you to remember is if I touch these claymores off, start shooting. And I said, I don't care if you hit anything or not. I want
Rounds
you
going
shooting out that way. Oh yeah. He says, no problem. He says, you can count on me. And so as luck or not luck would have it, I was not on guard. The guy next to me had the Starlight, and all of a sudden he elbows me and he goes, Sarge, he says, I think I see something. And of course I'm going, give me that, new kid. And I look and I could see all of these, it was a company size element
Silhouettes, yeah.
starting to come out of the village. And the point element was halfway down the berm. There was 3 of them. And I could practically see their eyes, right? And I went, hell, this is it. And then then my mind said, don't do it too quick. Make sure they're there. You don't want to blow it and have them all get away and all this stuff. So I wake up, get Lemire up, and I heard Lemire get ready and quick. I mean, you never forget that sound.
You don't.
And Slovey was whispering to me. He says, "Okay, I'm ready to go." And now you guys on the other L have no clue whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
Everybody's sleeping over there, but the guy on guard, rear security, not one clue. Nobody knew what was going on because it happened too fast. There was no way to communicate at this point.
No,
So I reach up and I grab these 2 magnetos. Huge explosion.
we woke up.
Goop bodies flying in the air. And the lead guy had his AK, and as he was flying off the berm, it must have just been a knee-jerk reaction because he pulled on automatic and the bullets strafed right in front of the berm and it kicked dirt into my eyes. And so I couldn't see anything, and Boyle had gotten 1 round off, and then he got down behind the berm, and Slovey was shooting. Jack was rocking and rolling, and all of a sudden I kind of got my eyes back to where I could see, and I elbowed him and I said, "Come on, Boyle, shoot!" And I thought, hey, I know you're scared, but let's get going here. And by that time, everybody's shooting. Now the fight's on, and he wouldn't respond, and so I elbowed him, and he kind of slumped over and death rattle. And Jack Slovey, I'll never forget it. He goes, "Oh, Jesus Christ." I'll never forget it as long as I live. And pulled him back. The helmet went like this, and there was a hole right between his eyes. And of course, can't do much. We're shooting. We're in a fight. I mean, what are you going to do? Nothing you can do.
No.
And that was a horrible, horrible night. And like you say, you'll never get that face out of your mind.
Oh, no.
I will never, as long as I live, remember saying, whatever you do, get up and start shooting.
Well, that's the only way you're going to survive.
I know, but you
You still
always,
feel responsible.
what if, that type
You
of
feel
thing.
responsible.
Ray, as I look back at our 12 months there, we went through so many guys. And when I say we went through so many, we knew so many,
that got
and
hurt
they
or
they were
killed.
coming and going and so forth.
Yeah.
Who do you particularly remember in the platoon?
Well, I remember you, but I'm trying to forget you as much
Oh,
as
I
I
know.
possibly can. You were a pain in the you-know-what.
By the way, did you ever tell anybody that you were a very angry person in Vietnam?
Oh, I was angry the whole time I was there.
Yeah.
I think there's a few photos where I'm giving a bird to somebody.
Oh,
Doesn't make a difference who it was. I just give it to them anyway.
every picture that we ever took of you, you were doing this. I have them. And I'd go, please don't do that this time. I want to get one picture that you're not doing that. And then no matter what the situation, if I would say something, Ray would say, "You dirty bastard." I don't care what it was, you dirty bastard.
Well, you are.
So, who do you
Okay,
who do you remember?
Okay, of course, coming into the platoon initially, Big Joe, Glover, I mean, they're automatic. Rambo, I don't know why I took a liking to him so well, but I did. He might have even been my squad leader at the time.
Ketchum?
No, not Ketchum. Ketchum was there. I don't think he was my squad leader, though. He was there. But Rambo was a sergeant.
Oh yeah, he was. You know what? He kind of helped us out.
Yeah, he really did. He was he's a nice guy. He really was. But I don't know. If he didn't have a beer or a cigarette in his hand, he wasn't living.
Every picture I have of him,
Exactly.
every single one.
And let's see. Okay, we got. You've got personal guys you know better
Sugar
than I
Bear
do.
Taylor,
Sugar Bear Taylor. He was
Buck Buchanan,
Buck Buchanan. But you've got Lanny Ross, who came in later. You've got Jim Browndow,
Smokes,
and Manarelli,
Kemp.
Kemp,
Tommy
Yeah.
Tommy Kemp,
Tommy Kemp. He was a good guy. And who else? I'm gonna forget somebody. I'm gonna be mad
Brogan.
about it. Yeah,
Dave Brogan,
Dave Brogan and
Herb Nye.
Sneaker,
Dunnick. Sneaker.
Manarelli, yep.
Manarelli,
Remember Sneaker?
Yeah, I do.
Galley.
And,
Rick
Galley.
Galley,
Rick
yeah.
Galley was one. Yeah, Rick Galley was more hanging around with
Naso.
and I knew him and knew Naso both, but we weren't. They weren't in my squad, so I wasn't as
Right.
tight with them as I was some of the other guys. You get, when you're responsible for somebody, you keep an eye on them.
And actually, to mention that, because our two we were always together, they're the guys you play cards with
Exactly.
all the time.
Exactly.
They're the guys that you open the care package with. They're the guys that you hand out the cookie,
Whatever-
and so
whatever
forth.
you've
So
got.
it was kind of and usually it was two bunkers.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, worth
Side by
of,
side.
of guys. Yeah.
So I mean, we interacted with each other because we were so close that the other guys kind of hung with us. You know what
Exactly.
I mean? Whoever he was, I probably was or close by, and so the guys that were with me, we just kind of flow that way.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of one rocket that got all of us. It was,
Yep.
But
And that's another thing about Vietnam. We always want to talk about the battle or the horrible thing. A lot of time was spent playing cards,
playing cards, throwing the knives.
throwing knives and stuff like that. So and we laughed.
Oh yeah, we
I
had-
mean, it was just like, and it's so hard to understand how you could go from horror
to laughter in a matter of hours, and really.
just on.
I mean, you come off an ambush patrol, and you maybe even had, unless somebody was really seriously hurt,
Right.
you come back in, you're coming down in the dumps, and
Right.
you got that stare. But if everything went great, whether you popped it and nobody on our side got hurt, and we did good, we come in and everything's great, and we'll go get our coffee or tea or whatever we got to drink, and sit around and bullshit. And you didn't really sleep. Somebody's taking a nap. You maybe take a nap for an hour or so, but you
in
could
the
never really
heat.
sleep
In the heat.
in the heat of the day. So,
Tough.
but play cards. We write letters, get letters, and let me see your letter. You want to see my
Oh,
letter?
absolutely. Yeah.
Swap back and forth. Bernie Sturkup, the guy got us to watch us. Remember? He's the guy that was grown.
Who's that?
Bernie.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
With
the
watches.
the watches.
He wrote me a letter every single day. Because I'd get a batch of mail and they'd be stacked to fierce.
Oh,
I'd have
my.
5 from my old man, and
My, oh, my.
there'd only be a half a page, but he wrote me every
Wow.
single day. So he liked me for some reason. But yeah, some guys you just remember well better than other guys, and same with the other guys in the platoon too. They've got their own little clique of guys that they hung with, who they are really close to. And,
Do you remember the food? What was the food like?
World War II rations. Does that tell you anything? I mean, it's stamped on the box,
Oh, no.
1945.
Yeah.
KNC rations. They didn't have MRIs. Just before we were leaving, they started coming out with MRIs, and they were really bad.
Got sicker
begin
than
with.
sicker than a dog on it.
Oh, Jesus, they were terrible. But
Did you guys ever celebrate like Thanksgiving, Christmas? Did you ever have a Thanksgiving meal or anything?
we did. We had this one you ought to remember. You ought to remember real well.
I remember.
I can't remember exactly. It may have been with the Cambodia border when
We
we,
were-
we were messing with the Green Berets.
We were.
And it was Thanksgiving. They brought out Chinook came in and brought us
Mermite cans.
Mermite cans for turkey, dressing, potatoes, and
All
the whole works.
cranberry sauce, shrimp.
Unbeknownst to us, it had been sitting on a helipad in that heat
In the sun
in the sun and spoiled
all day.
all day.
It was all iced when they put it there.
But
It was
when we
warm,
got it, it was
warm
spoiled.
water by the time it got to us.
But we ate it anyway.
We were so hungry because we had nothing but seas.
Exactly. So
We were out
worked
on a
it.
we were out on a 7-day rift, which means
Nothing.
you're out for 7 days.
You don't have nothing but what you carry. They ended up dusting a whole company off, a whole platoon off. Well, there was 2 platoons, I think, wasn't a whole company. 2 platoons of us. They brought a Chinook in, the big helicopters, and dusted us all off for food poisoning. Again, we left that site and didn't go back. 'Cause we
I
got-
believe
you all
it
got
was.
sick?
I believe it was. Poisoned. I believe it was the largest casualty thing of any American unit in Vietnam at one time.
At one night.
At one-
at
at
one
one
dust
time.
off. Because that was a dust off, but it wasn't a regular dust off. It was a Chinook to get us all on.
And we were in Cu Chi, and they were giving a lot of guys fluids.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
and I
We didn't go
remember
out for
just
3 or 4 days
we were
after that.
sick. Oh my God, we were sick. And then
That was my Thanksgiving meal. Thank you very much.
yeah, that. Thanks for asking. And
Yeah,
by the
I was
way,
getting my stomach
none of
thinking
us
about it.
none of us ever saw turkey the same after that.
No. No.
So
no.
you know, when I went to my mom's house when I got back, she says, "I'm going to make you your favorite food. I'm going to have a real nice dinner, and everybody's coming over." And what did she make? Turkey and all. So something came to my mind, and it's an important day. It's a really important day, and it's. We were operating out of Jackson, and Dodge. It was a village by Dodge City West where we always had trouble.
Always.
Every time we ever
Man,
went
you
around
know
there,
you
we
knew-
always had
You
trouble.
knew right off the bat before you went in there.
And they said, we're going to have you guys go in and go through the village. And we,
Assault online, that what you're talking about?
no, not yet.
Okay.
We got to get into the village
Okay.
first. And so we walk in there, and there's these Tudia signs all over the booby
Booby
trap.
traps.
They had these little signs with it. Was it a skull and crossbone? And it had Tudia. Well, to the Vietnamese kids, that meant there's a booby trap here. Booby trap,
Oh,
booby.
yeah.
And so GIs, you know what apparently it meant to them? Keep going.
Keep going, you're an idiot.
You know, unbelievable. And so we were going in, and again, Ray and I weren't at the complete back of the file, but we were towards the rear, and everybody was about from me to you away from each other. Just keep a distance. And everybody knew there was booby traps in there. And one of the things they always told us, Glover always told us, if you're going to cross a berm,
Step over it.
do not run your foot down the other side. Always clear it. Clear the bottom of the berm. And I don't think he even told us why, but we found out that day.
Whoever got it?
In front of me, slid his foot down and touched off a 105, buried 105 landmine.
I remember that day as if it
And-
was yesterday.
And he went up,
Came back down,
and
missing a leg.
and the two of us, are watching kind of like this as we're going over backwards. You know,
The blast.
and then when the dust settled, we didn't know if we'd been mortared, RPG'd,
We just know it's an explosion.
you know, and Dunnick was out to our right on flank, and he's yelling, "What's going on?" What, you know, and Herrera's laying in the hole that created, and his leg is missing really high up,
Not in here, because
really,
he just fell up and you could
really
see
high up.
blood squirting.
And of
Yeah.
course, we crawled up there, and he was awake.
Yeah, that
And
surprised me.
and he goes, "My leg's burning, my foot's burning." And of course, he's laying back; he can't
He
see.
can't see.
And there was no need to put a tourniquet on it because that round, that heat, 2,000-degree metal,
Seared it. Seared the
cauterized the femoral artery and everything else. All you could see was the little nerve endings and
Yeah.
meat. The meat was just twitching. And of course, we yelled for a medic. And Doc, unfortunately, was towards the front of the file. And so I took his belt off because that's just you're just going to
Automatic.
put that on there no matter what, and started to do that. And we looked out of the corner of our eye, and here comes Marquez and Clennon. Clennon. Now, Ed Clennon was a guy that came into the platoon that his family was all Catholic religious.
Very religious.
His brothers were priests, and all of his 9 sisters were nuns. Ed, it was an automatic. Ed, you're going to go into the ministry, you're going to be I mean, it was assumed. Well, he did go in for a very short period of time and decided he didn't have the call. He was not going to be a priest, so then he just went to college. But he did not belong there.
No.
Every man to a man would have told you he was just too kind and too nice.
Too soft
He
hearted.
did not belong in that place. In other words, good does not belong with evil.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with you.
You know,
Boy,
but
that was a bad day. That was,
but
when
he
we
was
lost him,
he
it
was a
terrible.
good guy. He did his work. He did as much work as anybody else.
Oh, I know.
Hard worker.
Volunteer for whatever you want him to volunteer
And
for.
so that day, Marquez's RTO had to go into Cucci for some reason or other. And Marquez came over and said, "Who's going to carry my radio?" Ed goes,
Automatic.
He'd never carried a radio, didn't
Didn't make any difference.
They're walking across because I'm yelling and screaming for a medic. Well, Marquez is going to come over and see what's going on. And we turn to the left and we're looking, and Clennon steps on another one of these 105 rounds. And if he didn't go 15 feet in the air, he didn't go a foot.
That's a damn sure.
And I mean, it's surreal because we've got Herrera,
Down.
and we're looking, and your head's going like this, watching in slow motion. And he comes back down. And Marquez is flat on the ground. You don't know if he's dead, alive, whatever.
With that blast, I just assumed automatically
It
it was
just boom. I mean, you know, so now in your mind you're going, we're really in trouble. No, this is really bad news now. And it wasn't like we're in a minefield. It's like if they're out there, they got us dead to rights now.
Yeah,
I mean,
we-
they could just come in and really
gone. Nail us to the
nail
wall.
us to the wall. And Doc had just almost got to us when they start yelling up there a little ways away from where Clennon was for a medic. And unbeknownst to us, a piece of that 105 went through Lieutenant Ide's chest and came out his back, and Tony Peroni was his RTO that day, was facing forward, and the piece went through his radio and into his back. And Tony went flat down in the water.
I remember that.
And if somebody hadn't been close enough to grab him, he'd have drowned. He'd have been
Oh,
dead.
no question about
Yeah.
it.
So that's the situation we find ourselves in. And what were you thinking and feeling at that moment?
Scared, number one. But afterwards, but now here was bad enough. But he was semi-shocked, so he really didn't know what was going on.
Right. He just kept saying his foot was burning.
Exactly. But when Clinton went up in the air and Marquez went down, I knew we were in trouble. And what astonished me was when Marquez got up,
Oh,
dusted himself off, and checked on Clinton first thing.
unbelievable.
And what really freaked me out, and I'm standing there, you're standing there with Herrera, Doc's working on him, and Marquez looks at me like as if I was some special dude and said, I need one of you guys to go get Herrera's weapon. It flew in the air and landed in the paddy. He said, one of you guys go get his weapon. We don't want the VC getting it. I looked around, I looked at you, and I said, there ain't no way in hell I'm going over there after what I've seen here and over there to pick up that piece of plastic. It was either me or you, so I said, hell with it. I went over there. I said, I'm gonna walk fast and just get the damn thing. If I get it, I get it. I went over there and grabbed the rifle and brought it back, which made Marquez happy. I got the damn weapon.
Now, you mentioned earlier about the times you were most scared.
I was petrified.
Marquez then calls in a medevac, of course. You can hear a medevac coming a long ways off. And that's usually good news.
Exactly.
We find out, we now know Ide's dead. We know Clennon's dead. We know Herrera is lost a leg, and Doc had just put a needle, albumin bottle in him. And we're there. And Marquez yells at Ray and I. When that helicopter lands right out in the open in front of us, you two guys have to go out and get the stretcher. And you have to get
Herrera on the chopper.
On the chopper. And by the way, if you have enough time, pick up Clennon on the way.
Exactly. That was scary.
I don't know
That was
about,
scary.
I just looked at you and I think I thought that was it. I had a feeling like I couldn't do it. Just like you felt about going to get the gun, I knew that every step we took
was death.
that was going to be it. And I remember
It's amazing how you do what you do. You just got to do it. You know you got to do it, so you do it.
got out to the chopper, got the stretcher back, got him on it, and then the realization hit, we got to go back through there again. And I honestly did. That was one of the most frightening days of my life.
You know what's really scary? After all that, they sent us back.
That's part two. But this time, in their infinite mercy and knowledge, they go, well, it didn't work out going in this side. We're going to send you on the opposite side of the village and have you come in this way, and we'll expect a different outcome.
Exactly.
And that's when Tommy Clack stepped on the 105, and who's right next to Tommy Clack. How does this work?
I don't know. How the hell we didn't get hit, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, but bless his heart. I said, this is a waste of time getting him on a chopper.
Oh, I did.
I mean, he's not going to make it halfway to the hospital. And when I was so stunned when I saw him at the reunion,
Oh, buddy.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it.
And Ray and I used to tease him all the time because he had this 8x10 photo of his gorgeous newlywed wife, and she was a blonde bombshell, I'm telling you right now.
Girl.
And it was a picture, they used to have what they call parlor pictures. Not bad, but just see-through but couldn't see anything, kind of a gauzy nightgown on a divan, leaning, just real sexy but not any revealing. And he just used to drag that out, and of course we'd say, how did such an ugly old toad like you get such a beautiful broad like
Really,
that?
really.
And he would just basically go, and we'd all laugh and carry on. And,
Thank God the camera angle was up and we didn't see that.
and so when this happened, Ray and I both, and we didn't talk about this, but we both said to ourselves, how in the world could she possibly,
Want him back.
how could this work? And so we knelt down, we took the poncho, put him on, we knelt down so the chopper could take off so that they didn't have to wait for us to crawl out of there. And I said a prayer. I said, God, if you're real, please
of him.
don't let him make it. Now,
Really, in all essence, I mean, what kind of life?
please don't let him make it. So this was a weird deal. Most of the time, when a guy got hurt, Marquez would go in, he'd come back with a report. If he made it, if he didn't, if they sent him immediately to Japan, if he was going to be there for a while and come back. I mean, they got information, not on plaque.
Which surprised me.
Didn't, so we all assumed he was dead.
There was no question
Everybody,
about it.
nobody questioned it. Until the day that I found Jim Langley. Jim Langley was his RTO that day. And got his ass blown off the ground too. Took the radio right off his back. And so I found Jimmy, and the first thing he asked me was, did you find Captain Clack? And I thought, what kind of a question is that?
Really?
And I said, well, Jimmy, no, he's dead. And he goes, all these years I thought the same thing. And he said, and I don't know what got into me. He said, but a couple of months ago, I started to do research so I could find out where he was on the wall. He ain't on the wall. And boy, I'm telling you, I think the color left my face.
I know it.
The hair on the back of my neck stood up. And I thought, this can't be. And of course, all that came back is us kneeling at that helicopter, me saying that prayer. That's all I could think of. And he says, are you going to find him? And I was just choked up. I said, well, yeah, I'll try. And so I hung up the phone and I thought, oh, I can't.
Oh, I know.
What if he is alive? So I had my ways of finding guys and directories and so forth. There's only 2 Johnny Clacks in the United States. One in Georgia, one in California. And of course I chose Georgia first, and I dialed the phone, and a young man answered the phone, and that was his son Adam. And I won't go into the details, but he sure was alive. And his life is an amazing amazing story in and of itself, which could be a whole
series.
a whole
There
story.
could be a damn
But-
movie written about it.
But that was a day, another one of those benchmarks in our time that changed us. Something happened to us. If there's such a thing as whittling away at a person, and kind of like they were like a big log, and now you're just
Smaller and
whittling
smaller,
away,
yeah.
and it doesn't look like it did originally, and all that. I think that was one of those days. I really do. And it didn't get any better after that.
No. No.
It just didn't.
Got
So we had, John Cook was out there,
yeah.
Don Cornett.
Yeah.
I remember Don real well. And Leroy Crabtree
Rick
came
Crabtree,
in.
yeah.
Yep.
Baby.
God knows, Moose. How can you forget Moose as big as he is? Muscle-bound son of a gun. I love that boy, that's what I do.
Alabama.
Alabama. Who else?
The guy you called Baby.
Oh, Noel.
Noel. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, baby Noel.
He and I didn't get along that well. Because I didn't know him, and he probably thought I was weird anyway.
Well, he's the only guy in Vietnam that wore blousing rubbers.
And none of our hair out of place.
Always.
Ever.
Always.
I mean,
In his
always.
interview, he actually pulled the comb out and combed his hair on the.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
And
I really don't.
and I stole the comb. I've got the comb. I'll do something with that sometime.
I remember we had to cross a stream.
Yeah.
I say stream, but it was wide.
Vamco Dong River.
And so we ran a rope. We needed to run a rope across. And the CO, I can't remember who it was at that time. But no, I don't know who it was.
Probably Eichner. That
Might
was
have been
about.
it might have been like they wanted to volunteer to swim across the river. So, being an idiot, which I've been known to be, I said, I'll do it. Don't worry about it. I get it across.
Tell them what was just across the river.
Bunkers,
But we didn't know that. It was all hedgerow.
All hedgerow.
Just
You
a-
couldn't see nothing but jungle.
And the bank came up like this, and there was just about a 4 foot.
Yeah, if you got to the shore, you couldn't see above it.
Right,
Once
and
I
so
got-
you had to climb up, and then you had about a 4 foot wide earthen berm
Exactly.
that went parallel to the bamboo.
Yeah, and,
But no, you couldn't see. It just looked like a bunch of bamboo. That's all it was.
Yeah, so I swam across and tied off the rope. I had an M16 strapped to my back with one magazine in it. And then I tied that off when I came back so that we could start pulling going across. I got back and I said, I looked at
Guess who the two guys that had to go over first was?
and,
Our squads.
yep.
Our two squads were going to be the
Yep.
vanguard.
Yeah, when I went back, I told that lieutenant, or captain, or whatever he was, I said, you know, I could have got killed doing that. What an idiot. He started laughing. And he said, you ready to go back? I said, if I have to.
Well,
So that's
the
when we all
mission
went
was the mission for the day was we were supposed to go over there and act as a blocking force for Delta Company, who was
Coming
coming
the other
from the
side.
other way, and they figured, hey, we can't let them get to the river and go up or down the river, so we'll be on that side of the river and we'll stop them.
Isn't that the day that Noel almost drowned? And if it wasn't for you, he'd still be sitting there.
Yeah, yeah. They when they opened up on us, we were standing on that 4 foot piece of earth, and the bamboo in front of us just started splintering and lighting up and flying, and all we could do is jump in the river. All we could do is just jump in the river. There was no place
No
else
place
to
else
go,
to go.
and there were bunkers right inside there. And man, talk how we didn't get killed deader than a doornail.
Oh, God. I mean, that's amazing.
And so this is like a watch. This is like watching a movie that all of a sudden starts going slow. I mean, the bamboo just splintering and flying.
Everywhere.
And I look to the right, and Noel is halfway across in the middle of the river, and the bullets are going right next to the raft, just strafing. And of course now most of the guys are back over on that side of the river. They're all down. They can't shoot because we're
on the other side.
on the other side. All of a sudden I see Noel go out of that raft, just rolled out, down. And I knew there's no way in
Wasn't
the
he carrying
world.
a radio?
Yeah, he had everything strapped on, ready to go.
That's what I thought. But like a
And
red weight.
he went right to the bottom, and I just instinctively knew, so I just crawled up and ran as fast as I could and dove in where the raft, was still there, and of course it was dirty. Had my eyes open, couldn't see anything. All I could do was just
Grab.
like this, and I had a lucky grab, and I grabbed the top of the radio. And I grabbed it, and I planted my feet on the bottom, and I pulled him up, got him off the bottom. He was sitting just like this on the bottom. He tells the story.
He'd already made his peace with God.
Yeah, he said, this was it. I knew there was no way. And when he tells it, he goes, it was like God himself had reached down and pulled me off the bottom. And so I got him up on his feet, and then I squatted and I pushed him up like this. And as luck would have it, it was close enough to the rope that he grabbed the rope. And of course, all this time, bullets are flying and carrying on, and that was. So then all of us get back where the rest of the people are, and then they call in phantoms, and they start dropping 2,000-pound tunnel busters to get into those bunker complexes, and the earth.
Big dirt clods flying up in
fly.
the air, 50 feet in the air, and coming down. You're behind the berm with your hands over your head.
And they were falling behind us. That's how, unbelievable. And then, of course, there's the quiet, and nobody's shooting anymore. And all we want to do is get out of there.
You know it.
All we want to do is get out of there. And they say, well, you guys are going to have to go in there now. What? We what?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. See, this is the thing. How did we do it? How did we go back across that river, get up on that earth, and go through the hedgerow? How did we do it? That was another one of those incidences where when we got out of that thing alive, it was just another one of those, I can't believe it.
Yep.
You know.
We had too many of those.
But again, it changed us. That was
Yeah.
another one of those road markers in our life. And we actually got to the point where we looked around and most of the guys that we had been serving with were gone.
Very few of them left.
And we looked at each other and honestly said, maybe we should, you know, if everybody's gone, what are we doing here? And I'll never forget it. And it goes back to the beginning of the interview. We looked at each other, and it took about 2 seconds, and almost simultaneously we said, I don't want to stay in this place one more day than I have to.
I agree with you. I know it.
And we just instantly said, you know what? We're here till the end. Now, you had an interesting nickname over there. They called you Ricochet.
I never figured out why.
Well, do you want me to tell you?
Go ahead, tell them.
Well, when all these guys are getting wounded, they'd step on a booby trap and break an ankle or whatever, they'd get to go. And that was called $1 million wound. Well, we saw so many of those. And Ray and I weren't getting wounded. You know, we started to want to get wounded. Because if we got wounded, we'd get to go.
That's right.
We'd get out of here. And it got to a point where Ray would say, if anybody sees a booby trap, let me know. Because I want to go ahead and trip it and get out of here. And in a firefight, and now Ray will deny this, but I saw Ray one time in a firefight put his hand up, hoping that he would get a...
I'm not admitting to that. I'm not saying it's not true, but I'm not admitting to that.
And so ricochet, you know, if I could just get a ricochet. And that's, so I think Butler and Moose or whatever nailed that on you,
Oh,
if I'm not mistaken. So ricochet it was from, you know,
Get on.
from there on out. But you know, we did survive Vietnam. We got to our last days. We did get on the Freedom Bird. Oh, I mean,
Well,
I'm
you
sorry.
did.
One of us got on the Freedom Bird.
Did you take an R&R?
I did.
Where did you go?
Hong Kong, like everybody else who wasn't married. I waited till my 8th month to get R&R so I could go to Australia. And I went in and that's where I was going. And I went in to go ahead and go. And some jerk off first lieutenant had one more day in country longer than I had. And he got my spot. I've been hot, but boy, I was hot. I've only been madder than that one other time, a little bit further in my career. We ended up going to Hong Kong and bought a lot of clothes, electronic stuff.
Electronic,
cameras,
yeah, oh yeah, we all did
electronic
that.
cameras and all that. But it was a good time. It was a good time.
Do you have any of your electronics to this day?
No, we talked about it earlier. Well, we may have, maybe not, maybe it's just remembering. But when I came back to Vietnam, I brought it with me because I get free shipping from Vietnam. You see,
Correct.
anything home there's free. In Hong Kong, I had to pay for it. Well, being a tightwad, I brought it back to Vietnam so I could mail it from there. It was all in the company supply. Well, my luck being the way it is, I had probably an $800 camera back then that I paid $75 for. It's a Pentax.
Or what, single reflex or whatever
Exactly.
the big deal was in those
deal.
days. Yeah.
Nice camera. And I bought a Yashica to carry out in the field with me. Rocket hit the supply pit and blew all my stuff all the way. The only thing I got left is a Yashica camera that I carried out in the field with me with a shrapnel hole in it. We were at Shamrock, we got rocketed, and that camera was sitting right by my head. And a piece of shrapnel went by my nose and hit that camera.
Ah,
It's got a hole in the back of it, but still in my closet.
you know, one thing Ray didn't mention, when he was in Hong Kong, he met a lady, and as he was, you know, that you'd go to the bar and have a drink once in a while with her. But
Oh,
I
great.
remember him saying, "I'll gladly marry you Tuesday for a honeymoon tonight."
Yeah, I'm sure I said that. Number one, I don't drink. I don't drink liquor.
Well, what were you drinking over there then?
I wasn't drinking
Cokes?
anything. Cokes.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was my
a
attempt
beer
at
every
humor.
now and then, but not. No, I mean, I wasn't a drinker. I wasn't a big drinker.
Yeah.
Never have been. I'm not saying I've never been drunk, but I have partied on.
Yeah, you and I always traded our beers for Cokes.
That's right. So
And Rambo was the first guy.
jump all over it. But you know, it was it's kind of a sightseeing tour for me, and I went to a no place. I went to to me it looked like a department store. I wanted to get something for my mother. And it had all this ivory. I saw through the window, it had all this ivory carvings and stuff, beautiful stuff. So I went in and I got a beautiful carving. It was about that wide. I can't even remember now what it was. It was a bridge with some ornamental stuff on it. And I bought it. And I came out, and one of the guys that I wasn't with, but it was an American, said, "You better get away from here now. Said, if the MPs catch you in this place, you're going to go to jail."
Oh wow.
There was a Chinese store, red Chinese, which was a no-no. It was off limits. You couldn't, you don't even near the place. So, but that was my most harrowing experience in Hong Kong. But I did get that home.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
What'd Mom think of that?
she loved it.
Oh, bad.
She loved it.
So we get home. What was your
Wait a minute. What? You didn't ask him what plane he flew home. 'Cause
Oh,
said
you
he
know
flew
what,
United.
That's the whole story. But he got on a real nice plane, and I got stuck on it.
United Airlines.
United, you were on a United Airlines. I was on a
No, that's what I said. I got on the United Airlines flight.
I know you did, you prick. I got stuck going on. Nixon was having a recall of so-called troops, and my normal hero was Dave, and they put me on that plane. I didn't know what it was going. I really didn't know what was going on. I got on the plane. I said, "Hell, I ain't riding this damn thing." So I went back off.
It had web seats. It didn't
Web
even have
seats.
seats.
Web seats.
Now the guys on the United flights, they all got steak dinners.
Steak dinners,
Oh.
booze, and brown-eyed honey
what was
looking at
your,
her.
what was your entree?
A bologna sandwich and a damn glass of milk and a pack of potato chips. But if that hadn't been for
And
the
if you think he had anger problems in Vietnam,
that was that was the matter I forgot. I'm still mad over that. If the MPs had drug me back onto the plane, I'd still be in Vietnam because I wasn't about to get
Oh,
on
my
that plane.
God,
I wanted a
that's-
freedom bird. I ended up, they dragged me back in there and tied me down.
you know, and I'm not sure why. I should have felt empathy for you. I
You
should
got
have
a chance
felt.
in hell.
I should have felt sorry.
I'll never forgive you for that. You'd laugh about it all the time. Riding in a damn web seat, no windows, in a damn big ass air bus.
You're back towards the.
Next to the chickens and hogs.
Yeah, geez, and I mean some dang
In
Air Force E1 giving me a
airman.
bologna sandwich.
Yeah, and a paper bag.
because you are my godfather. In your honor, I knew that story already. There have been many times when I've purposely sat him right next to the restroom on many flights or on the bulkhead where he can't move his seat, just to try and avenge your.
I appreciate all that. Any effort you can use.
Oh,
towards
trust
that.
me, he's done it. So, what was it like getting home?
You'll hear the stories from everybody, I'm sure. We came back, we flew into Alaska, and from Alaska, we flew into Sacramento. I think that's where
Travis.
Travis Air Force.
Yeah.
Travis Air Force Base. And of course, we were in uniform. In Alaska, they put us in our dress uniforms for whatever reason. But when we got to Travis, we got off the plane, they bused us to a place we had to take off our uniforms and put it on. And they supplied them. And civilian clothes, just got the size you needed. They made us wear civilian clothes to go to the airport for whatever destination we were going to. So we got civilian clothes and flew into. I was supposed to fly into Los Angeles Airport. But we got a layover there, and the plane didn't go directly into Los Angeles. It was a stop. I don't remember what city it was that they landed in anyway. And of course, you got all the protesters out there spitting and doing the whole new team. You've heard that story many times. But we were supposed to have priority on airplanes flying back from Vietnam. Well, that didn't work either. We had a 8 or 9 hour layover before we could get a flight to LA. And there was 3 of us that were going to LA. The bus ride was 4 hours. So we said, the hell with that, we got on a bus. And actually, the bus ride for me, and we went to Los Angeles, and I just stayed on it and rode it on into Barstow, which is my hometown in California. From there, I slapped my bucket, my satchel into one of those lockers I got with the key, and I decided I'm walking home. I want to see my town. I just wanted to feel home. So it was about a 5-mile walk, but residential and that stuff. So I walked home, and I just walked up to the front door. My parents didn't even know I was coming home. They knew I was coming back, but they didn't have any idea when. And I knocked on the front door, and most people don't knock on our door. They just say, "Hey, you're home." And I said, "I knocked." And my mother opened the door. Whoo! What a hullabaloo we got there. I think she could have heard her holler from about 4 blocks.
Sure.
And of course, all the hugs and kisses, and of course, my old man came out there. He was cool. He ready to be home, son. Of course, they were all glad to see me. But it was a good homecoming. And of course, being from California, the first thing I had was a good Mexican meal, which I hadn't had for a year. And of course, in California, the food is outstanding.
Oh yeah.
So, and my sister's brother-in-law, my brother's wife, mother made me a real homemade Mexican dinner, which was fantastic. And after that, I went to Fort Hood, and from Fort Hood, I got out, and that was the last that I wanted to see of the Army.
What did you do at Fort Hood?
Supply.
Okay.
Not much, anything. What we did, it didn't have anything to do with us. So we sit in that warehouse, and those CO2 cartridges that they have, we made us a little cylinder with a nail in the bottom of it, and we dropped those suckers in there and go off like a mortar.
Oh,
So we sit there in that big-ass warehouse, big, and we shoot out the windows at the other end of the
oh,
building.
for heaven's sake.
It was a great, but what else you gonna do, man? They didn't have any idea what to do with us, because we're only gonna be there 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
To me, it was only 3 because I had to go early out to go back to college.
Yeah.
And left Fort Hood, which I wasn't real crazy about. And once I got out the main gate, I took my duffel bag with all my military uniforms in it, put it in a big ass barrel that I had sitting out there for trash, and lit the sucker. I had bought a car in California, and I drove it to Fort Hood, so I had my own vehicle there. I siphoned some gas out of my car, threw that duffel bag in there, and poured the gasoline on it, lit that sucker, and I said, if I ever see green again, it'll be a cold day in hell. And then I drove home, and went back to school. Then I graduated from San Diego State, and my parents decided pumping gas for a living wasn't the thing I needed to do. So my mother's sister came out to visit from North Carolina, and they convinced me that I need to go back there and work for my uncle. And somehow, well, it took some convincing, but the fact that I hadn't seen my grandparents or knew them real well, growing up in California and then being in North Carolina, I said, well, this would be a good chance. I've got nothing going yet. I don't have any career moves set up because I was going to be a teacher, and the market was saturated at that time, especially for English lit teachers. So they talked me into coming out to North Carolina, and then I met my best half over there. And she's from Durham, and so I'm stuck.
Are
California.
we talking about the saint that's sitting over there?
Saint ain't the word for it. You've got to be better than that. She's a sweet lady, and means everything to me. I mean, everything.
Yes.
I couldn't live without her.
Now, another parallel path in life. I come home, I go back to college, I get a teaching degree.
Oh, really? Are you kidding?
Not.
That's amazing. That's
I'm telling
well,
you.
you're not a teacher, were you?
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years?
Yep.
I didn't even make that. I
And,
didn't
well,
do that.
Vietnam
Oh.
changed me.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
I went to work at a place called Yellowstone Boys Ranch in Billings. And it was a place that they sent bad boys and troubled boys. Boys that parents didn't want, you know, that type
yeah,
of
I know
thing.
what you're talking about.
And I didn't know it at the time, but the only reason they hired me is because I was big and I was a Vietnam vet. That's the only reason, because they wanted to make sure that there had been a woman teacher there before me, and they did everything but take her clothes off.
Yeah.
And she was crying every night in the administrator's office, and she just left. She quit.
Yeah, right,
She
right.
couldn't take it. So that's when I came on the scene. And there was a guy named Brian Moorhead, and he was 19 years old, and he wasn't supposed to be there. 18 was, but they tried to prepare these kids for farming. They tried to teach them a skill. Well, they hired me because I had a special ed degree, and I could put together a work-study program.
I got you.
And I could go into town and get employers to take these guys, put them under, and I could get money for them. You know, I could pay half
Yeah, yeah.
their wages and stuff. And so Brian Moorhead was not supposed to be there. He was a criminal. He was like a mafia boss on the ranch and criminal activities and so forth. So he's there sitting in the front row when I go in, introduce myself, and he stands up and he says, by the way, he says, if you want to do anything around here, you got to go through me. Just right in front of the class, he said that, and I didn't think I heard him right. I said, I beg your pardon? And he goes, yes, I run things around here. And I said, come up here. Big kid. He was as big as I was. And I said, would you say that one more time? Because I said, I know I didn't hear you correctly. He said, if you want anything done around here, and that was I cocked him. I cold cocked him and knocked him out right there on the floor. And he was laying there, and I told the two boys in front, grab him by the heels and drag him out of this classroom and dump him out there in the hall. And they did. And the rest of the class sat there mortified. And I never had any problems with that class ever. And Brian Moorhead, of course, went on to take another kid, and they ran away, stole cars, went all the way down the corridor, Utah into Arizona, then I mean, they could follow him by the police reports before they finally caught him. So I never had to deal with them before. But the problem with that story is what I did. I didn't. It happened. Just so, I mean, in other words, you know how that Vietnam thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I didn't step back and go, well, geez, there might be a consequence for this. So I got hauled in to the administrator's office that night, and I'll never forget it. He set me down, and I thought, well, I got to teach for a day. And he looked at me and he goes, now you know why I hired you. He goes, good job.
Well,
He goes, this is exactly why
What they
I
needed.
He goes, that kid has caused more trouble to the entire ranch. I mean, not just the school.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the whole routine. And I thought, oh, okay. So I taught there for a couple of years, but then another thing came up that the Vietnam thing didn't work very well, and that's the teachers went on strike for the first time in their history. And I was a team member. If the teachers are going on strike, I go on strike with them, and
Right.
I'll picket. Well, Yellowstone Boys Ranch was not part of the
Oh,
school district, and they told me, they said, if you go on strike, we'll blackball you, and you'll never teach in this district again. That was the wrong thing to. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's the Vietnam thing.
Yeah.
I came home with. So, needless to say, I picketed, and they tried to run me over with a car a couple of times and missed. And
How'd they
the
miss?
next year, they didn't renew my.
contract.
I got blackballed. So
Ray,
then I went
I just
into
want to
business.
thank you for helping us interview my dad today and let him tell his story. And I just want, I mean, this is really neat. that
Well,
he-
how many times have you said, who's gonna interview my dad? How many times did you say that?
I mean, I thought we were interviewing you.
I don't want to be interviewed.
Well, the thing is,
I
you see, our lives have been such a,
Parallel,
I
it's
mean,
amazing.
it is
It's amazing.
it's unbelievable.
really-
So it didn't take very long for us to hook up again after the war.
No,
And I believe I had gotten married to Tim's mom. We met you in Barstow at a
Yeah.
restaurant. And we had lunch together and so forth. And then I went back to Wyoming, and you must have went to San Diego,
San Diego, and then from there I went to North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Now, hold on just a second, fellas. You never let him tell you what he did. He came to North Carolina, but you never asked him what he did. What?
I didn't do anything. I just hung around.
Did you? But then you met her. But what did you do for work?
Oh, you
I
were,
didn't work. I was. See, I'm on pension from the psychiatric ward in North Carolina for being crazy. So they send me an income every month. I don't have to work.
I'm talking when you were younger.
I came out here from North Carolina.
was it the uncle that you were?
I was working. I started working
Yeah.
for my uncle. And I
And,
was,
and what did he have you doing?
he had 3 different organizations. He had a real estate office, a mobile home. He had a bunch of mobile home lots, which were really hot sale item then, because housing was so expensive, regular housing. And a real estate office, an insurance office, and he put me. I thought I was going to have a choice, but when I got out here, there wasn't no choice. I was going into mobile homes. So I sold mobile homes in Goldsboro, which is western part of the state, and stayed with my grandparents, which was great, because I stayed with them a year and I really got to know them, which I'm really grateful for. And then from there, they transformed me. I told my uncles I've had it with here, I'm going back to California. And his wife, which is my mother's sister, got together and said, do something. So in order to keep me there, they moved me to the beach. So I moved to Moorhead here, and was selling mobile homes here. And,
Were you making good money?
real good money, especially for a single guy.
Yeah.
And that was when the mobile home business was, great. I was making, and sometimes I was making $3,000-$4,000 a month.
Oh my, that's a lot of money.
Back then it
Yeah.
was. Back then it was. No, I didn't keep it, but I had it.
Yeah.
And then I quit working for him, and because he got into financial trouble with the IRS, being investigated. It ended up in the end, ended up losing his mobile home lots. But
Oh wow.
but they came back at a later time, a year later, and reimbursed him what
Oh, my
what
God.
penalties he had paid, because it wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was something wrong there. They got misinformation or whatever. But anyway, his mobile home business was out, so I started working for a furniture company, and I worked there for 10 years selling furniture, and then became sales manager of the store.
Did you enjoy that?
I did. You were joking earlier today, this morning. We were talking about sitting in our recliners and watching TV. Well, that's what I did. We had a TV section, and I was in charge of the store, so I said, the recliners would sell a lot better over here in front of the TVs. Ulterior motives.
Absolutely.
My backside was parked on that,
For heaven's sake.
watching TV. Until a customer came in the store. The customer came in the store, I'd jump up and help them.
Yeah.
But I was in charge, so I had everybody else doing whatever they needed to do, dusting and all that kind of junk. And either stand behind the counter. Of course, back then I smoked like a fiend, so I smoked my cigarettes. And surprisingly enough, the owners of the store neither one of them smoke. They didn't have any problem with me smoking in the store, which I would have thought would have been stupid. All that smoke being filtered into that furniture.
The fabric.
Well, he's trying to sell.
You take it home and take cigarette smoke with you.
Exactly, but I never had any problem with it. Of course, I was selling most of the military people who were smokers themselves.
Yeah,
They
sure.
probably couldn't smell it either.
Probably didn't.
But then I went to work for that place burnt to the ground, and I went to work for a car dealership. And
That place burnt to the ground.
Yeah, it was a
Somebody-
really
did-
old building.
did
It was
someone
electric fire.
Lick a butt?
No, it was electric fire. It was 2-story. No, I didn't put any butts out of the floor. That's the first thing he asked me. What'd you do with your damn cigarettes? I said,
Yeah.
it wasn't me. There was a real old building. There was electrical wiring in the attic. And it was a real old wood building, and it went up like a match in a heartbeat. But after he went out, I got a job with a car dealership in Dearborn that sold Mercedes-Benz, Audis, Porsche, and Nissans, and I worked there for, 8 years then? And then they went belly up. So I went on unemployment for a little while, and the guy I work for now, which I've been working for him a long time, I just started his construction business, and went to work for him.
The
Part-time,
funny thing about your life, parallel, he had a lot of different jobs too. Twinsies.
Go figure.
I love you, honey. But, then I married my sweet honey over there. It was the best day of my life. Couldn't live without her. Sorry, I couldn't.
So, I'm in Cody, Wyoming, living in an 8 by 30 Columbia trailer, and I'm gonna have a son, and I was driving truck at the time, and so we have Tim, my oldest son, and of course, gonna get him baptized, and they said, well, you gotta have a godfather and a godmother, and your mom said, well, Joanne, my sister, would, and they looked at me and they said, well, who's going to be the godfather? And I didn't even hesitate. I said, there's only one guy in the world that I trust, that if something happened to me.
Who's that, George Cush?
Yeah. And I called you on the phone.
I said absolutely, without hesitation. Absolutely.
And so that's how you became Tim's godfather. But it was really weird because, when they asked, I think they thought I was going to say some relative or something. But in my mind, it was very serious. I always thought the godfather was the guy that really did
Take care of
if something happened. And there was only one man in the world that I trusted.
That goes the same way to you.
So this morning, you brought up the Godfather. We were having breakfast, and before I could even get my order, and you said, "I want to talk to you about something," and you said, "No matter what happens, you just are going to accept this," and tell us what happened at breakfast this morning.
I had eggs and ham.
Oh, good.
I had
Okay.
an omelet.
Yeah, there's something I've been thinking about for a long time. I really have. And this was the most opportune time because I could see you face to face in person with your dad sitting next to you. And the Bronze Star I got in Vietnam that they hung on my chest, I had. I thought there's only one person I know that I can give this to that'll appreciate it as much as your dad and I appreciate it. And that was you. So I gave you my Bronze Star.
That's awesome.
And you well deserve it, you really do.
So then, you're Tim's godfather, and we make a pledge. We will stay in touch with each other faithfully. And 10 years
He's
go
right.
by.
Like a blink of an
10
eye.
years go by. And I woke up one day and I thought, what the heck? And I called your home. You weren't there.
I was in North Carolina.
And I think I talked to your dad and I said, I can't, and I can't believe this. I said, we haven't talked in 10 years. And he said, well, you gave me your number. And he said, yeah, he's down there, I think, furniture store maybe at that point. And I called, and he answers the phone, and almost simultaneously, we each said, "You dirty bastard." Do you remember that?
That's the going phrase.
Do you
man.
remember that?
Yeah, you
And
call me and I
we
call you.
and we said, this is the funny thing. During those 10 years, there wasn't a day that I didn't.
Think about you.
Yeah. And so we had a long conversation, and we caught up on everything that was going on. And before we hung up, now we're promising, right? We're giving our words of honor. We won't let this happen again. You got it, buddy. I love you, and I love you. And 20 years later,
Like a record. I get another call, and go ahead. You better talking about the conversation we had. But
well,
bottom line is, we're talking about reunion. That's when you brought up a reunion.
that was it.
And I thought it was a fantastic idea. I really did. And you asked me, he says, where the hell can we have it? I told you, point blank, there's only one place we can have the first reunion. It was DC at the wall. I mean, you got to. There's no question about it. I don't care what we do after that, but the first one's got to be DC. So that's when we had our first one.
We did. What an
And that was the first time we physically saw each other.
I know.
Again. And I swear when I walked in and saw you, I thought we were just getting to Vietnam. We just met each other. And so, I mean, it's like I talked to you yesterday.
Yep.
It was just an absolutely amazing feeling.
And as these guys were showing up and they were coming in, they didn't look a lot the same. But the minute they opened their mouth,
You knew exactly who they were.
and they would start in where we left off in Vietnam. If they were a smartass
They
in
were.
Vietnam,
They
they
were
were
a
a smartass
smartass,
right
yeah.
here. If they were quiet in Vietnam, they were quiet. I mean, that was what blew me away.
I know, it's amazing. It's amazing.
And but that first reunion was maybe one of the most heartfelt.
I agree. I agree.
And it really, what it did for all of us that were there, it allowed us to finally, after
Come to
30,
grips with that.
after 30 years, to be able to,
Come to grips.
and like your wife said, well, you never talked to her about it.
No.
And my wives never knew, anything about my service, except his mom did when I almost killed her one night in the bedroom. But besides that, she kind of figured it out when I was sleeping with a gun under my pillow. And anyway, that's another story. But no, she didn't know. She didn't know about what had went on in Vietnam. And now we've got wives there. We've got people that after that reunion went, I had no idea. Now I know a little bit about why my husband's the way he is, or
Exactly,
or
exactly,
whatever.
exactly.
And of course, as you know, then we just kept doing that, and then adult children came and grandchildren came, and
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
it just turned out to be a wonderful
family thing.
wonderful thing. What have I not mentioned that is important to you to have in your interview?
Well, I've watched a bunch of your interviews already, and the typical question you ask at this point in the conversation, what do you think a hero is? I'm not even going to get into that to mount anything.
What's the question?
You always ask, what could you consider a hero to be?
What is your definition of
I'm
a hero?
And
Yep.
I really don't have one, except for this. The only real heroes I saw there didn't come back. The rest of us were brave. We did our jobs, and we may have gotten medals, we may not have gotten medals, but those are the true heroes, the ones that gave their lives and didn't come back and have families and have a full life. So that's my guy. That's my
Yep.
my thing, my hero.
So you, like me, we know we served with some heroes.
Exactly.
We served with some heroes. Yep.
And I just have to, I don't feel like it's a real disagreement, but I have to bring attention. There is another hero in your life, because you've mentioned him several times. And you said this morning you said it was a regret. You just wish that you and your dad could have really talked about your service together. But I would say he was a hero in your life,
yes.
for sure. You know,
No-
and
no
I
question
mean,
about
I
it.
think
No
that
question.
deserves to be talked about.
That's
you know.
no question. And he,
And you said earlier, you just mentioned one place he served, but he actually served in Okinawa. What was the second?
Guadalcanal,
Iwo
Iwo
Jima.
Jima, and Korea.
I mean,
And these boys didn't serve for a year; they served for duration.
and he made it home.
And he made
I
it
mean,
home.
that's a hero to me. I think that needed to,
And
you know.
had great now, and he almost made it to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the boat off of the shores of Vietnam when he put in his retirement paper.
And something that was not spoken of, but Ray and I both knew. Remember I mentioned earlier when we got our stripes, our sergeant stripes, his whole thing changed. At Iwo Jima, he lost almost every one of his men.
All of them.
And he never, ever recovered.
No, I agree with that. And he never talked about it.
Never. But it was just, it was there,
Oh yeah.
you know, and you and I both know, we went through some of that. We lost some of our men. But the thought of having that coming home without anybody.
Oh, I know. And these guys aren't spending a year together; they're spending years together.
Yes.
Not just a year, but
Yes,
years.
yes.
So we got close in a year. Could you imagine being
Yep.
in a situation like that for 3 or 4 years?
Well, and you brought up something that very political that happened. In Vietnam, that was the first war where they strategically separated soldiers.
Exactly.
They did not let guys like they did in
Units,
World War II.
units didn't go.
They
No,
didn't let
no.
the neighborhood boys
Go
all
together.
go register together and go serve together.
Exactly.
For whatever twisted reason, they thought, no, we're going to separate them all and get them with a bunch of people they don't know. Now, I don't understand
I don't
that,
either.
but what you said is very true. They did not go in for a year. Some of these boys were in there for a lot of years, and they knew everything. I mean, valid point.
Yeah, you know, they just knew everybody from family history. They knew their second cousins, third cousins, and how many dogs they had, and you know their whole history. And then when you lose somebody that you are really close with, and you know, and I'm sure over a period of time, just like we did, when we got new guys, because they had replacements just like we
Yep.
did, a lot more so than what we did, probably in some cases. But you got to a point where you didn't want to know the guy. Hey, Jack, okay, how you doing? That was about it. But you didn't know whether he had a mother or a father or aunt or
Kids
uncle
or
or whatever.
whatever,
nothing.
yeah.
So you just didn't want to know because you'd already been through that rough scene. So, yeah. But other than that,
So through your life, looking back, what's Pam meant to you?
life and death, pure and simple. Without her, I wouldn't be alive.
Look at Pam and tell her what she means to you.
Everything. That's all I'm going to say about it.
She saved you.
Countless times. Countless times. You know me, you've known me a long time, you know me inside and out. And any woman that put up with me for more than an hour has got to have a heart of gold.
Which is why I have contacted the Vatican and I have put in papers to have her receive sainthood while she's alive instead of waiting until she passes away.
She deserves
And
it.
I believe those papers are being
Processed.
approved as we speak.
That was, didn't mean to go that far with this.
If you could give generations to come your best advice for their lives, what would you look at the camera and tell these kids coming up, tell these generations, you know, this is going to be on the website for 100 years. And so this is going to be like Ancestry.com, sort of, you know, but in living color.
I got you.
And so what is your best advice to these generations to come?
Well, this is by far the greatest country in the world, and has been since conception. And many a man and woman have put forth the greatest effort to keep it that way, and with their lives. And politics aside, you can be a Democrat, you can be a Republican, you can. The choices you have in the United States, the big thing is burning the flag. If you want to burn the flag, I fought a war, so you have that right. I ain't crazy about it. I don't like it. And it makes me mad every time I see it. But I mean, that's the whole reason I support this country, is the fact that you have that right. You don't get put in jail for your beliefs unless you're hurting somebody else. So that's been that, and if you take that concept and make your judgments with a full heart, and know that what this country's got to offer, no other country has to offer, as far as opportunity, no matter who you are, what color you are, what background you got, what religion you've got. You can make success out of your life if you work. You may not be a billionaire, but you'll have a comfortable life and a happy life. In a lot of countries, you don't have that availability. So, just do your thing. And just respect what you've got. Don't disregard it. Don't be stupid.
Well, I don't know what else we could say at this point, except how much I appreciate you and I love you, and you're the only brother that I've ever had.
You're my best one.